I'm Eli Bell. I got a story.
What kind of story?
Based on the best-selling novel Boy Swallows Universe is a new Netflix adaptation of that novel. It's 8 episodes long. The last episode's like an hour and 10 minutes, I think. Well, it felt pretty long. I'm pretty sure it was epic. But I'm here to talk about whether it's adapted fairly well and whether it's a story you want to invest yourselves in, because 8 hours is a bunch of time and you never know with these Netflix series. Are they going to be good, or are they just going to be drawn out and kind of run of the mill? Let's jump in. In the 1980s Brisbane, a precocious boy and his selectively mute brother embark on a suburban odyssey of love, redemption and retribution after the family is torn apart by a drug lord. There's some recognizable faces in here like Travis Fimmel, but I think for the most part you're probably coming to, especially who plays the brother, the younger brother and the mute brother. And I think that's good. There's a freshness to this series that I think helps it. The pacing is somewhat dragged out in the middle from some of that story when they're trying to flesh out more of the storyline. But for me, I was totally immersed into these characters. We have a boy who kind of narrates his life.
Eli.
He's writing a letter to a pen pal friend.
Wondering if you were going bald before you became a skinhead, or if that happened afterwards.
And so we get to hear what's in his head, and that kind of sets up the protagonist storyline and each episode, and then becomes a big part of the story later on. It's very cleverly put together. In fact, I would say this whole series is really cleverly put together. But there's a few things you should know when going into this series. It's very dark in places. It's very hurtful towards families. There's some assault. There are moments in it that is gut-wrenching. So it depends on how emotionally stable you're feeling at the moment as to whether you want to go into this, because there are moments that are going to really give you some real good oof and gulps in your throat. When a series can do that, you know they're doing something great. They've managed to write the characters that you're so immersed into them that when stuff happens to them, you feel it. And that comes down between an amalgamation of incredible acting performances where you forget who the characters are. You forget that they're acting and you just feel like you're there as part of the family watching them go through some horrific stuff. And then you get the score and the set dressing that really places you in the 1980s Brisbane, Australia, and feels authentic to the storytelling. Once we start getting into the midway part of the story, there's a little bit of lull, like I mentioned, but that is almost integral to the story because it's giving us much more of how these characters become who they are at the end. I can say for me there was a fruition to the ending that I was very much satisfied with. I don't know the adaptation of the book as well as I hope. I seem to remember, I'm trying to think, I'm sure I've read it, but it's been a long time if I have. I think the adaptation is good. I'd love to know if you've read that book recently and it's one of your favorite. Let me know once you've seen the series what you think, how they did with the characters and the adaptation. I know this is based on a book, and it's also the author's, some of his experiences, some of his life experiences are sort of true. So there's some truth in the storyline that's been adapted, but for the most part there are fictional moments. And the reason why I'm mentioning that because there's a supernatural element in here that will, I guess, have you guessing as to like, how is that real? That's weird. That's incorporated here, and yet works really well for the story, for the character. A very interesting character dynamics. A brother who's mute but is essentially writing what he says in the sky, but there are moments where he says like he's almost a fortune teller, and the younger brother who translates that, and later on the older versions of themselves, again very well cast and expertly played, because you feel like you've just kind of watched them growing up through time. There are moments in this that you hope the story would go a different way because you want the family to be okay, and it does, and it kind of sticks true to itself. But this was a real tour de force into watching a life of a family in a number of episodes, kind of snapshots, but long enough that you feel like you've watched a lot of their life. Well acted, but there are these moments that stand out that you remember from most of each episode. There's normally something that happens that makes you, it spurs you on to wanting to watch the next one. And then that final episode makes you go, damn, that was a hell of a story. It's one of those series that I feel like, and I hate talking about award season, but like when a certain TV series are up for awards. This feels to me like it should definitely be nominated for a number of, acting, performances, storytelling, directing, all of that. Between the cinematography and the storytelling of this story, I think it's one of the best I've seen in a long time. Certainly one of the best I've seen from Netflix since Beef. Let me know once you've seen this what you expect from this story once you saw it. Did you fall in love with the characters like I did? I think every actor, especially the young brothers, I think they really kind of hold your gaze into what's going on. So even when it's just family sitting around a table having breakfast and you're hearing some monologue from your storytelling or what's happened or there's some tragic moment, even if it's the dull stuff, you're still engaged as with the tragic moments, and that makes it very real. And then when we have the realism of fight sequences that are like someone getting stabbed, it's not Hollywood at all, it's just very real, or the fight's very raw, the emotional intent that you get very, very raw. Everything makes it for an interesting watch. And the reason why I say interesting, because it's totally entertaining, but it is heavy duty going. I feel like I need to go, not have a shower, because it's not like an Iggy series. It's definitely uplifting in moments, and for me it has an ending that makes me feel better than the majority of the content that I had to sit through with their lives. But for me, I thought, yeah, this is something that I now need to go and watch, something lighter to kind of get me in a better mood rather than sitting and steeping in some of the dark stuff that we experienced. But the fruition of the series that you get in this, the way it ends, makes me hopeful and happy. So don't feel like you're going into this and there's no light at the end of the tunnel. There is. If you read the book, you understand where it's gone. But I think the performances here are well worth watching. The story, the way it's told, is well worth watching. And this is a hell of a strong entry for Netflix in January. So I hope you watch this. I'm going to be reviewing a couple of other Netflix series this week. That are not so good. So look forward to those reviews. Maybe you can find one that you can just put onto the side until you're really, really desperate of stuff you want to watch. Check out my membership on YouTube if you like my content and you find it informative. I'm putting new content on there every week. Also doing a collaborative Movies and Munchies. We do this thing called The Bearded Ones, which is our Patreon. You can start there at just £1. We have wow, I've lost the ability to speak. Over 80 videos on there now, very different, from video essays to skits, all of that. And our podcast, the best thing you watch this week. So thanks so much for watching, but most of all, until next time, remember, live long on Tuesday.